Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Penny Pincher Firearms. I want to do a bit more of a relaxed kind of video today. I mostly want to talk about the black powder revolvers that I've been getting into, and one that I would actually recommend for somebody who's maybe getting interested in starting some black powder shooting. Maybe they're interested in cowboy action shooting or North-South shooting association kind of stuff, or they just want an inexpensive black powder revolver. So first off, you guys have seen the 1851 Navy copy that I have. It's in 44 caliber, and little CD just fell. It's in 44 caliber. It's a copy of the 1851 Navy. They call these a fantasy 44. I was incorrect in my last video about this, where I said it was a copy of a Confederate copy. The Confederates actually never made one of these. There were 44 caliber Confederate revolvers, but none of them were a copy of the 1851 Navy. This is completely fantasy, created either by Navy Arms or by Pietta, and it's just so people can have a 44 in a 1851 design. So it's really, it has no place in Civil War history. So if you're really wanting to get into something, also those are not they're not usable for NSSA. So if you want to get more authentic, like I did, you get yourself a Griswold and Gunnison 36 caliber revolver. Now, this is actually a copy of that original Confederate revolver, which was for the most part a copy of the 1851 Navy with some cost-cutting features. One of the main cost-cutting features is this barrel is round. They were trying to shave off a little bit of that steel, save more steel so they can produce more firearms. And then the frame is made of brass. Now, it's important to note the brass frame, not so much the barrel. The barrel's fine. Brass frame can be considered weak. On the newer guns, from what I was reading, they use pipe brass, which is higher in tin. It's closer to being kind of a bronze. So it's a lot stronger than the brass used during the Civil War, which was also called a pink brass, because it was higher in copper and had kind of a pink tone to it. But otherwise, this is basically an 1851 Navy. Now, the original Griswold andGunnisons had an iron cylinder made of, it was twisted iron, which wasn't very strong. It had a tendency to explode in people's hands after firing. So that wasn't exactly an appealing thing about these revolvers. But other than that, really the frame was strong enough. It's adequate to shoot 20 grains of black powder and a 36 caliber ball. You really don't need a lot to work against that kind of weight. Though with that softer brass, I could see that there could be some stretching in the frame and maybe in the pin here for holding the cylinder. I could see that being pulled from the rest of the frame. So this revolver is only $220 through Cabela's. A few other places like Dixie Gun Works or Sportsman's Warehouse have these available as well for a little bit higher. I've seen them for maybe $250 at the highest. If you want one with a steel frame, but otherwise you like the 36 caliber, which I really love the 36 caliber, you can get a Leech and Rigdon. The only places I've seen the Leech and Rigdon were Dixie Gun Works and Cimarron Firearms. And they were kind of up there. They were like $360. But I believe they're made by Uberti, and honestly, I think Uberti is probably a higher quality firearm than these. But honestly, this has been a really accurate firearm. So as far as price point goes, this is a really good starter revolver for somebody who wants to get into cowboy action shooting, black powder, NSSA, or just generally wants to get into shooting and doesn't want to shoot something small like a 22. So it makes you have a higher power available. Maybe you can get used to higher recoil so you can shoot other firearms in the future. It's also less expensive to shoot a black powder firearm for practice purposes. Say your self-defense firearm is 38 special. Well, you could practice with the 36. It's pretty much a 38. So it's in that range. It's .370, I believe, is the actual caliber. So it's a really good option for practice shooting and anything like that. I just simply enjoy how balanced it feels. It really doesn't have too much weight on the front end, unlike the 44. The 44 really does feel quite nose heavy. This one feels like a lot more of the weight's in your hand and not ahead of your hand. And that could be with the round barrel, or it could just be the fact that the cylinder's slightly smaller. Uh, I'm not sure, but it just feels a lot better. It's a lot more fun to shoot because you're not getting racked by as much recoil. It's actually really light. It's also not a very loud firearm, so it's just generally a comfortable revolver to shoot. Now, when it comes to things like buying ball as well, for buying a 100 ball of 44, it costs $13, $14 depending on where you're getting it. Whereas with 36 caliber balls, I saw it as high as $9. I bought some recently for $8. You buy a 100 ball for about that much. Uh, on top of that, you could cast your own bullets. So that's an option. I've been doing that with a 44 for shooting my walker because it seems to like the conical bullets a lot more than it likes balls. So those are some options available to you. Also using different powders, using Black MZ, which is right now the cheapest option for black powder alternatives. And you know, you have a really good shooter. This is a really good shooter, and it's for a really good price. So, like I said, it's $220 on Cabela's, $250 to $260 some other areas like Dixie Gun Works, Sportsman's Warehouse. Um, I think I might have seen it on Cimarron Arms, but I might be wrong. But honestly, like if you look at the history, the originals weren't very good. They weren't very popular, mostly because of the exploding cylinders. But as far as with the new materials that Pietta uses, they use steel for the cylinders, steel for the barrel, hard steel for the loading lever and everything. Like it's a lot higher quality than the Griswold and Gunnisons from the 1860s, of course, with newer materials and everything. And it just feels really smooth. Like when I first bought it, it was a little rough, so I was just running the cylinder like this, trying not to drop the hammer on the cylinder, of course. But just really working it, trying to get that metal nice and smoothed out, get all the burrs out of the way. I went in and greased everything. Another thing that when I first bought it I had to work on was the grips. They were a little rough, so I took some 4/0 steel wool and kind of polished them up a little bit, put some oil on the wood, made it look really nice, and then I actually have some brown shoe polish specifically for walnut, so I can bring out that nice rich brown color. So I think it really improved the at least the look. It does improve how it feels in the hand. It's a lot smoother. So this made for a really comfortable shooter. I just shot it about 5 days ago, and you know, me and my coworker Jason, we really loved this one. He liked this one so much that he was looking at buying these, but then I offered to sell him this one, so I'm going to sell him this one, and I think he'll be satisfied with this. It's a really good revolver. I've enjoyed shooting it, honestly. I just personally like shooting the Griswold a whole lot more. I've never been one for heavy recoil or anything like that, and I've never cared about large bore rounds. So it hasn't really been a big issue with me to shoot small bullets. It doesn't affect my manhood in any way. So it's important to find your comfort zone, especially when you're getting into shooting. So I think it's important to find what you like in a firearm, especially if you're new to shooting. Find out what you're comfortable with, how much recoil are you comfortable with, and just find that point. And I really think I have, at least with the smaller full-size revolvers. With like my Walker, it's heavy and it's got a pretty heavy recoil. So we'll do a video about that one eventually and get more talk about it. We'll make a shooting video with this as well as the Walker. So yeah, so just remember, like I say, a good gun does not have to cost a pretty penny.